Expansion draft, Cam. Cam is jacked up for that.
Yeah, I am, Jack. Aren't you? I mean, there's so many different scenarios that are going down right now. There's so many little things, Jimmy, that maybe Army's doing right now. Like maybe, you're hearing rumors that maybe they'll take Schwartz, and they have their because look, they own the market right now. Seattle could do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They could talk to anybody. So I bet you in the next couple of days here, we're going to see so much stuff. And maybe Army's not doing anything right now because he's waiting for the draft to get something done there. Again, you could drive yourself crazy going through all the variables that could be happening right now. It's just interesting that it's interesting, right?
Well, yeah, because from my standpoint, it's always cool because you go, okay, there's going to be a new look with the team. What's that new look going to be? And you have all these possibilities. And part of me being the hockey geek is, oh, what if they did this? Oh, what if they did that? And, guys are working hard, that are in this business trying to figure out, okay, what's the deal with Tarasenko? And it's a different scenario every 4 or 5 hours, and it's frustrating at times, but it's kind of cool if you're a real hockey geek because you're like, hey, maybe this will happen. Maybe it's a 3-way trade. Maybe he comes back and the Blues move him and get something for him. Maybe they don't. I mean, there's just all that possibility. And then you also look as a hockey fan of the St. Louis Blues, you're thinking, well, how can we improve this team? And I could throw out 1,000 names, and every one you would go, ooh, that'd be cool. I could throw out Landeskog. I'd say, well, Tarasenko's going. Oh, Matthew Tkachuk's back in the news. Don't forget about Jack Eichel. Ryan Suter is a possibility. And there's somebody that I really believe, because that's the way Armstrong is, there's somebody we don't even know about. Because Doug Armstrong's really good about keeping things quiet right up until the moment. So
I think the big three forwards, though, you got Matthew maybe in the mix somehow. Like that's Landeskog's the number one. Jack Eichel could be something. It's a lot of coin, whatever the case is. Like you're going to spend a lot of coin on it. But I think after that, as far as the forwards are concerned, I don't think there's any big superstars. But there's a lot of middle guys that you could pay a lot less than you could implement them. But I don't know. You got a lot of the grinders now that you could find that could be in the mix. But it's going to be interesting nonetheless. It can be very confusing on so many different variables that can go down. Not to mention not just with the Blues either, but like the Carey Price situation. Like, okay,
that's kind of cool to watch.
It's so weird because you're like, he's just like a diamond, shiny diamond, but maybe have a couple nicks in it. But you don't know how bad those nicks are. But you're like, God, can we? I've seen how good you are. You're so good. When you're on, you are unbelievable. And it's just interesting. We'll see what happens.
Look, if I can do my typical comparison to baseball thing, this is where I love, we both get chirped for that, by the way. Charlie always spins it to baseball. Cam always spins it to hockey.
Well, yeah. We meet in the middle.
No, what I love about NHL free agency, and Cam, you mentioned it perfectly, there is a true middle class. There is a middle class of the NHL free agency, which that no longer exists in Major League Baseball. It's the couple 3, 4, 5 big time $200 million contracts, and it's the young cheap players, and everybody else. You either keep those guys as long as possible. When they get to be 30, 31, those guys don't get any deals. They get 1-year deals. They have to go to Japan. They go to Korea. The middle class no longer exists really like it used to in Major League Baseball. That's why hockey is so fun, because free agency, you actually see your team change. You can make 3, 4 deals. You can bring in your second, third, fourth line guys on deals where those cats are making $3, $4, $4.5 million per year. You can get really good players, and those guys change teams often in the summer. That's why I think the NHL free agency is so interesting.
It is so interesting. And again, your team could change drastically in a short amount of time, and all of a sudden you just have a completely different team, maybe with some head guys there, but you have a completely different team. And I think it's going to be that way. This is such a weird, unique event, having an expansion team come in. And, again, yeah, we'll see. And if you look at the lineup, though, Jimmy, what's your take on this? Like, if you look at the projected roster for Seattle, I look at it, and I'm like, okay. At the beginning, I'm like, damn, that could be good. Now I'm like, I don't know. They have a lot, again, of the middle class, hard-nosed middle class. Don't get me wrong, because you're going to find some great players.
Like from Toledo.
from Toledo, Eureka, hardcore guys that'll go in the corners and, like, you know, playoff type kind of dudes that you could just stack your team with. But as far as big scorers, I don't see much going on. But then again, they could go do what they want right now, and they got some coin to spend. Hey, Jimmy?
Yeah, there is. And you're right about the roster possible makeup because there's some nice players. There's a Tarasenko is a guy. There's potential for a really good player, and there's also potential for failure within that. But there isn't. You always need a number one center. There isn't a number one center among any of that group.
Yeah,
there's some good players, but there's never. It's not the franchise. You're going to have to get that in the draft. They do have the number 2 pick, but that's where they're short, and. But also, as good as Vegas has been and what they've done, think of this. They don't have a franchise center. And,
yeah, I know.
And that may be one of the things, I don't know what they're going to do this year, but there's a lot of noise that they're coming to the realization that we probably need one of those if we want to finish the deal here.
Goalie D, top center. I mean, that's the biggest.
Yeah.
You got your center drives the play. So, again, a lot of things. And so maybe they're looking at it. Ron Francis is looking at things like, okay, let's be somewhat stingy. Let's conserve our money. Let's play this right. Let's not overpay to do this. We're not trying to win right now. Carey Price, we'll toy with him a little bit. They can't trade him anyway, so it's like there's other couple guys that are available that they could snag from Montreal anyway. And so maybe they're like, we're going to be awesome in 3 years. We're going to be awesome in 3 years, but we're going to be competitive now. We'll see what happens, but we're not going to have any knee-jerk try to go for it like Vegas kind of is going for it right now.
I disagree with that, though. Why do you think they can't be? And again, I'm not saying they're going to be Vegas, but I think it would not surprise me if they got a playoff spot in their first year.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
They'd be on the threshold, yeah. There's enough talent there.
My point is, fine. My point would be like getting a guy like Carey Price. Like, we'll eat it in 4 years or in the next. We're trying to win this year, next year, and we'll get him. I don't know. There's different ways that he can go about different things. It's hard to explain, but I don't know. Or you just get the best players available and you just deal with it, and you could always use that for leverage and trades and whatnot.
That is possible. Here's something that has been said, but it's a possibility. I mentioned number one center. What's keeping Seattle from addressing their draft and then knocking on Buffalo's door going, we got some cap room and some guys. What would it take to get Jack Eichel from you guys?
Yeah, exactly.
That would be their number one center for a long time. They come out, flying. And, that's just another possibility, which makes it kind of fun.
Okay. Speaking
Rangers
of,
trying to do that too, probably.
Yeah,
kind of fun. A couple good questions on hockey on the text line. Now, Hockey Bob's here. I don't think this is going to happen. But Hockey Bob says, what about a Oshie for Vladdy trade? Ovi is Vladdy's idol, after all.
I mean, that just makes I don't. Come on.
I don't think Oshie will ever be back. Sorry.
No,
he's going to be with the Kraken. I
Oshie
guarantee you
for
at the end of his career.
Why would Washington want to do that?
That's another thought. Here's the thing. What is the value for Vladdy? It's all over the place, right? If you're a team that's close, but you don't have a lot of cap space, I don't think you're super interested to move a whole bunch of cap space for a guy that's questionable. There's a lot of potential, but there's a chance for a lot of failure there, too.
Exactly. No doubt. And that's why I don't think he's moved right now. Maybe they couldn't find it. Maybe they want to keep. There's so much stuff that it gets confusing. But I think that, if there was something on the table, they would have done it. Maybe there's a bigger thing coming up.
Yeah. By the way, Oshie is under contract through 24-25 through his age 37 season with a cap hit of $5.75 million. I'll tell you what, though, he got paid nice with those signing bonuses over the years. They hooked him up with a lot of signing bonus money.
5.5, that's not that much.
5.75. That's the cap hit.
Yeah.
And he only makes, starting this next year, in base salary, he's making 3, 2.5, 4, 3, but he has signing bonus money each year of $3 million, $2 million, $1 million, $1 million.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he was hot when he signed that big ticket.
Yeah.
And he won a cup. So it worked for them with him. He was a big part of that.
It's paid off. Again, you're on the backside of the contract now. We all know that the backside is not the better years.
Where are the contracts with the good side on them? Like, the front side of contract. Where's that guy at?
That guy signs for 3 years, and you go, okay, we're moving on.
It's it's Petro's deal here, right? It was Backus's deal here.
Yeah.
It's basically if you can get those first 10, 11 years from those guys, you get their absolute prime years, and it's worth it. And then most of the time, let's be real.
Chuck, how's that?
Right. Most of the time, that deal when they're 30, 31, they want 5, 6 years, most of the time, those deals are really bad. Now, can you win a cup in the first couple, 2, 3 years? Sure. But the last, year 4, 5, 6, we're usually talking healthy scratch, buyout type conversations.
Always. Almost always.
With a lot of those guys.
Yep.
Somebody chimed in and goes, is a Vladdy situation bad enough where he doesn't get a thank you video when he plays his first game back? Oh, my God.
That's a great question, though.
No, it's not. No. He will, are you guys kidding me? They're going to do all kinds of stuff for him.
Hold on, though.
Dude.
Hold on.
100%.
What if? We know right now it's awkward. It's uncomfortable. And the things that Vladdy said, I don't think it's that big of a deal, honestly. I really don't.
It's not a big
deal. But what if when he leaves, there's like a scorched earth article? He does an interview with a Russian reporter. Then you could maybe see that happening. But I think the Blues are classy. The Blues are classy.
But there's not enough to where, and again, I don't know everything, but it's more like, I just didn't get my, what's he going to say? I didn't get my power play time. We already know everything, basically, when it comes to that. Well, maybe the team, I don't know. I just think that they're going to be classy, and they're going to do it no matter what.
You do the thank you video during one of the stoppages of play in the second period when nobody sees it during the commercial break, and everybody goes, oh, by the way, they had this video. Thanks. That's it. That's all we need.
Yeah. Look,
I mean,
he helped
we're not going to, bring him out before the game and, wave hands. It'll be quick in and out, move on. That's it. But they'll get it done because it's the right thing to do.
Yes, absolutely will. That 100% they're going to do that. Even if there's a scorch earth. But what's a score? Like what? Like what's he? Is there something really bad?
At this point, I can't think of anything other than what
unless
he's done,
it
really.
could be something affecting the medical staff and stuff like that. And I just think that I don't know.
And then again,
that would be the case,
it might be Vladdy's team comes into town and he's not available because he's injured because of his shoulder.
No doubt.
Right?
Well, you can have a video, and he's up there in the press box with us media types eating chips and pretzels.
No, he ain't going up there.
And he can wave.
He's not going up there. If he's on the other team, he's sitting in the locker room watching the game. He's not going up there.
And there were a lot of goals and a lot of good years. And this is usually how it ends, though. Does it ever end well with a superstar, with an organization where there's injuries? The superstar is no longer at the same level of play. He makes a lot of money. I mean, how often, though? Even Petro. I mean, Petro was much more in his prime. And I know it's different. He didn't request a trade, but he left in free agency, and that was awkward. And look, it's all good. That's sports. That's business. But usually, when you have a legacy player, it doesn't usually end with the Cal Ripken, right, with the
Keith Tkachuk.
With the Keith Tkachuk and taking a lap around the ice to a standing ovation. It usually does not happen like that. It's usually awkward, buyout, healthy scratch. The dude looks like a shell of his former self.
Yep, and I've heard even guys like we interview, like Bill Guerin we just had on a Canister pod. He talks about how he dealt with Lou. I go, why'd you get traded? He's like, I had a contract feud with him.
That's right.
And we ended, and I went there, and they traded for Jason Arnott, who scored like a game winner and against Dallas and like all this stuff. Then he had it again with then Army bought him out. Then he comes to St. Louis, and he makes the All-Star team after getting bought out by Dallas, and the All-Star games in Dallas, and they gave him a standing ovation. And Army was a part of it. It was just so – he's like, dude, I went through this all. And I look back and I'm like, oh, my God, I could have played that so much better. And these guys all know that. It's just a business. Some of these guys are young. They're just thinking about themselves. You're so fixated on yourself that you don't realize that and then you don't realize until you retire, even if you're doing something like Billy Guerin's doing, being the GM of Minnesota Wild, you look back and you're like, God, I'm an idiot sometimes. I went all through that crap for nothing, really.
And the other thing is, I know that a lot of people have criticized Vladimir Tarasenko for some of his comments. And look, wanting the captaincy, I would want my superstar players to want the captaincy. Now, whatever goes on in the room there, okay, and his critique potentially of the medical staff, where there might be something there also, and that's his opinion. It's all good. I do think some of the things said about Vladdy, and he's been here a long time, I do think overall Vladimir Tarasenko is a very good dude. And we've all seen this. We go back. We mentioned Layla earlier. Remember Ari before that and the relationship?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, she passed away. But the relationship that Vladdy had with her and all the stories going back 5-6 years when that was. I was at a school for kids with developmental issues and kids in wheelchairs and all that a couple years back. And Vladdy came in there and took pictures with everybody. We did a story on it for Fox 2, and he was signing autographs and loved hanging out with the kids. And the teacher told me he does that every year. I mean, there's a lot of stories about that, too, going to hospitals. So I understand that from the business sense of him as a player at the end, it's not a great fit. And okay, maybe on the ice there's things he could have done better. But I do think overall Vladdy's a very good dude, and St. Louis will remember that.
No doubt. You'll remember the good things instead of the bad things. He won a cup. He
scored 200 goals here.
Exactly.
Yes. Plus.
Look at the 91 jerseys everywhere. Look at the 91 jerseys during the Stanley Cup parade. Look at the 91. They are everywhere. Everywhere.
They should be.
And of course, he was awesome. He had that he was awesome. And he still is going. I still think he's going to be awesome. And if he's not, he's not. Then we got the best years, and it's all going to come back in 5-6 years when he's doing his thing. It just doesn't matter as much anymore. It's just going to be a podcast story down the road.
Well, hey,
that's
but you want
to
you want to plug that podcast though. You got to sell it. You got to have something sexy in there to get people to click, right?
Yeah. Well, everybody has something. That's the thing. Every one of these guys has a billion different stories like that.
We. Not the same situation, but there were stories about how difficult Brett Hull was when he left.
God.
Oh my God, he was mean. He was difficult as a teammate, and he would rip teammates from down. When he comes back, when he's there, we love the man, right? It's like there he is, number 16, one of the best players I ever watched in the Blue Note. We'll say the same thing about 91.
How about Big Walt coming in 50 pounds overweight?
Yeah,
I mean,
Walt's another guy.
They love his kids.
Yes.
I mean, it's what you do. This all blows over. It's all just business, fun things in the moment, Twitter fun, and then when it comes down the line, it's funny to talk about later on in life. And I get that vibe from everybody that we talk to that goes through it.
Yeah.
So,
and the other thing is, time truly heals all wounds. Whether it's 10 years, like the Albert Pujols situation, where he wasn't able to come back for a long, long time. He doesn't get that ovation in year one. If the Angels come back, Cardinal fans were ticked off.
Yep.
But 10 years later, whatever it was, 8, 9, 10 years later, you remember the great times. And time does heal all wounds. Same with Vladimir Tarasenko. If he goes on somewhere else, he's going to come back, and they're going to have that montage. It'll be him with the cup. It'll be him in the community. It'll be him scoring goals and the excitement he provided. Where he did, remember, Vladimir Tarasenko and Pietrangelo for some years there carried this organization. I know they didn't win a cup until 19.
But they were awesome.
Right, but they were really good. All those Ken Hitchcock years where they were basically...
He had some good playoffs.
Right, they were the best team in the NHL in the regular season. If you probably took a 5-year span, they were always right up there. And Vladimir Tarasenko was the engine of those teams.
Can I have one sort of rebuttal against what you said?
Sure.
When you said every time heals all, and with sports guys, it does. With the Vladimir Tarasenko situation, if he kind of just flickers out, they're going to remember him no matter what. If he does great, they're going to remember him doing great. Whatever. But sometimes, as an athlete, you do something, and no matter what you did, they remember that one thing, and it could be negative. Bill Buckner, for instance. I'll even throw this out when you bring up Eric Lindros's name, who was the biggest force ever, and no one's ever tore the scene like him besides Greta, but it's a powerful force. And then when you think of Eric Lindros, you're like, you just think of his concussions, not everything, but the first thing that comes to your mind is him getting rocked and dealing with that, and kind of a negative thing. And he accomplished so much. Now it would help if he won a cup maybe, but I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching with that, but I don't know. That could be the case. And Bill Buckner is certainly the guy that comes up more than anybody.
Okay, and that's a good point. Even somebody like Bill Buckner, though, at the end, didn't he go back? Didn't he have his moment at Fenway Park?
He did have a good moment.
Yeah, but
and it takes, don't get me wrong, that was what, 1986? We'll look up when that moment was. I mean, he got a lot of hate. He basically had to move out there to freaking wherever he was living, Idaho or Wyoming or whatever, because he was getting so much hate mail. Even somebody like Bartman. Okay, when Bartman happened, they're throwing beer on him, okay?
He had to hide.
What's that?
He had to hide.
Right, he had to hide. He hasn't even come out of hiding since. The dude doesn't do interviews. Especially after the Cubs finally broke the streak there in 16. If Steve Bartman came out to Wrigley Field and threw out a first pitch, if he was wearing the same Renegade sweatshirt, which was which was the youth team my buddies played for actually randomly up in Chicago,
really?
And he was wearing his turtleneck,
it's always the case,
and he was wearing his hat, and he was wearing his headphones. That was the most popular Halloween costume, by the way, at Bradley University in the year 2003. Was the Steve Bartman look for that Halloween year. If Steve Bartman came out after the Cubs won the World Series in 16, and if he comes out now, if he goes out and throws out a first pitch and does a couple of interviews, they will give him a standing ovation. I promise you.
Can I make?
I promise you.
100%. I agree with that. I'm just saying, as far as your legacy, if you go out like Vladdy does, and it's kind of like they kind of crap on each other a little bit. When he comes back, everybody's going to remember him being awesome. They're not going to remember just this particular thing. But when you screw up so bad, like a Buckner or something, your legacy is always, or you get rocked really hard or knocked out in a fight. Another thing with some of these fighters, man, that were killers, and all of a sudden they get knocked out so bad to where when you think of them as a fighter, you just always, that comes to mind first. And I don't know. I'm digging deep into this. Sorry, it's confusing. But, yeah, like Bill Buckner came, the fans still like him, but no matter when you think of that name, it's never like, God, he made that one awesome play that one time. No, he screwed up. Okay, but we still like him.
100%. But sometimes your screw-up, unfortunately, is so big that it is all that people, or at least they'll remember that first. Again, Bill Buckner was a really good baseball player. We'll look up his numbers, but he had something like 2,500 hits.
Yeah,
he was
he
a
did.
really good hitter for 20-some years. But if you do make the critical error in the World Series, where the Red Sox, the team that couldn't win a World Series, going back to the curse of the Bambino, and you make that error, that is such a headline snapshot play that, that is always going to be remembered first. In your obituary, unfortunately, he did pass away. That's going to be in the first paragraph.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly right. And maybe that Mike Tyson legacy, like he did some crazy things. But when I think of Mike Tyson now, I think of him being a killer. And then maybe the Evander Holyfield, and then maybe went to jail. And I know it kind of all mixed in, but the first thing I think of Mike Tyson's like, oh, God, was he a bad dude. But I think for a while there, everybody thought of the biting incident. But he did so much before that to where it's like, he was just so loud that people, I don't know.
He's also, to me, Mike Tyson, he's such a personality now that, do you think about the boxing and Mike Tyson's Punch-Out? Sure. But his legacy to me, and you mentioned some of the negatives, obviously, not just with the sexual assault, but the biting of the ear. But for him, it's being the man in the 80s. It's the video game. It's a sexual assault. It's jail time. It's coming back. It's biting the ear.
Tigers.
It's the Tigers, and then it's really the what are the movies? The movies,
Hangover.
The Hangover movies.
Yeah.
I think
His
about Mike
podcast.
Tyson and the tattoo. You think about his crazy tattoo as much as anything.
Yep. Remember when he was making so much money and he had those tigers and he'd roll out in his underwear and he had white tie. God. I mean, he's just handing away stuff. Like oh Lord.
He's out there, man.
But you know what? You were in such a crazy psycho, in your face kind of life and all this stuff. And it's better to maybe break down and go to rock bottom. Now, some of the stuff like he did, but sometimes to spend all your money, get ripped off, and all of a sudden you're so popular to where I'm going to sell a little bit of weed, I'm going to chill, my mind's going to be right, I'm going to smoke weed and do podcasts all damn day, and I'm going to make this money back. Maybe not as much, but enough to where I could chill for the rest of my life, and I'm not doing crazy stuff. And I can just talk about my craziness.
And by the way,
he's got it going on.
Bill Buckner, 5 different years MVP votes, batting title 324 in 1980. You have You have an All-Star game, led the league in doubles 2 years, and a career batting average 289. That's a pretty good career.
Nice
2,715 hits. So again, that's a really nice, solid 22 years in the big leagues.
But he messed up.
He did mess up.
He messed up.